Welcome everyone to the Late Game, episode 53. My name is Lycan. With me today we have none other than Paul ReDeYe Trelawney, and of course, Destiny, Stephen
What
Bono.
up?
So first of all, Paul, we haven't had you on in a long time. It's really good to see you. What have you been up to?
It's been a while.
What you been up to?
Christ, quite a lot actually since I guess we last spoke, and done a couple of majors with Dota and CS. Had a bit of time off over Christmas, and recently returned from South Africa from helping them launch an esports league, which was really cool. So yeah, I've been busy, and in between that, of course, working for Gfinity and helping bits and pieces. I've not done a huge amount with them recently, but did get involved in a show that they did while I was out in South Africa, which was Formula E, so that was really cool. Went out on BT Sport over in the UK, which is, again, it's just pushing the boundaries and trying to make sure we get all this esports stuff on what they call real TV.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, been busy.
What is the league down there? What are they running? Is it CS:GO League?
Yeah, so it's called the Telkom DGL League. It's the Telkom DGL Masters, Digital Gaming League, and it's a pretty big deal out there. It's R1 million, which in our money doesn't sound like very much, but it's a lot of money out there. The exchange rates are just so good for us. So it's R1 million. It's 8 teams. They performed eight professional teams, signed them to contracts, and they're all multi-gaming organisations, and they provide a team for Dota 2 and for Counter-Strike in 2 leagues. And they'll play out throughout the year, and then they'll play some big grand finals in Cape Town in, I don't know, later on in the year. I don't know if they've announced the date yet, but later on in the year they'll have a big Masters final. So yeah, it's really good stuff. It's really good to see a country like South Africa, who we don't see enough of, frankly, in international tournaments. It's good to see them putting stuff together.
Definitely. Steven, what have you been up to, man?
Nothing much, man. Surviving. I'm still here.
All right, so let's go ahead and this isn't.
I really don't even want to. Let's just go on. I don't need to relive the fucking past worst fucking week of my life. Holy shit.
Yeah, well, that's why I have you here, so I can.
Have you tweeted out about the show yet, Steve? Oh.
I actually think you read
37,000 follower Twitter. It's all good.
Hold on one second. I'm gonna do that right now. I'm gonna tag ReDeYe in this tweet. And why doesn't Omni what? Oh, Steven, what happened? Is it ban evasion? Is that why they got you?
Tell me what happened, because I don't actually know what happened. I was away.
Well, the first day I got really fucking pissed. I think I said something like, Cox, I really wish there was a service to resolve IP addresses to physical addresses so I could go bomb the node and force you to upgrade your shit. And I guess somebody reported it, or maybe Cox reported it. Yeah, and then my shit got banned. It's pretty good.
So what happened with the other day? Is that ban evasion?
Yeah, I guess because now people are just going to constantly report any new Twitter they make, so.
People are assholes. So did Twitter come to you, or were they just like, nope, ban evasion, screw you, we're done?
No, the Twitter has no customer support, so,
Yeah, I guess it's kind of frustrating. The big social media, Twitter, Facebook,
yeah,
and all
just
that.
a little bit, but it's all good.
All right, well, you're here, you're with us. Are you going to try again? What's the plan of attack?
The third account?
Yeah.
How many accounts should I make, do you think, like, until I give up?
I think you
Channel
should
Man made like 30 on Reddit, right?
Yeah.
I think that's a good segue, guys, because one of the things I want to talk about is Total Biscuit leaving social media. So the way that I want to start this off, though, I think it's kind of relevant to you, is I want to ask you guys, Paul first, what role has social media, being on Twitter, being on Facebook, what role has that played in your success?
Well, Lycan is asking us how many years have been shaved off your life.
Yeah.
You had to
Probably a better
estimate.
question somehow.
Is it in the double digits yet?
It's funny, actually. I mean, before I answer that question, I want to take up on Destiny's point, because for me, he's right. I'm not sure people fully comprehend what it's like being connected 24 hours a day. Because it is like being, and I'm not trying to make out like, oh, we're really hard done by, oh, poor us and everything. I'm not like that at all. It's great having fans, it's great having people that you can interact with and share media with and what have you. But at times it is just like being connected 24 hours a day. And my CEO, Neville Upton at Gfinity, very kindly at the start of December told me to go and take some time out because he could see that I was just burnt out. And he made it a proviso. He said, look, just go and find a beach or somewhere to lay on for 10 days or a couple of weeks or whatever. But the proviso that you do this is that you turn everything off. And you turn Twitter off, you turn Facebook off, turn your email off, you turn Reddit off, turn everything off. Just don't take the phone with you if possible. And I stuck to that while I was away in December. And I have to tell you, it made me feel a lot better coming back in January and feel refreshed and, you know, a bit more relaxed about it because it does take its toll. And Stephen and I have talked, you know, before about dealing with a lot of bad feedback or, you know, people having to go at you all the time. It does take its toll. We're all human. So I think that's the first thing I wanted to talk about. But success, yeah, it does help success. There's no doubt about that because when you're connected to so many people, you're able to share information, share opinions, share media, share videos, share blog posts and what have you. And obviously that leads to being more popular and other roles and more income, obviously, on top of that. So yeah, it's really important.
All right, so going back to the vacation, did you find yourself in the first? Was it like a withdrawal where at first you're like, I need it. Yeah.
That's awful. First 3 days. I was like, I don't know what to do. I had a really good book, Brené Brown, if anyone's wondering, Rising Strong. It's a very good book to read. I had a good iPod full of tunes, but it was really strange. I just, you know, I stopped looking at my phone because I knew that I wasn't. I turned all of the notifications off, so it was less enticing, if you like, because I couldn't react to anything. But yeah, it was very weird for the first, I would say, 2 or 3 days. But after that, it became a bit easier. I became a bit more relaxed and less worried about it. And I've come back with a similar sort of attitude, really, that, you know, if I don't look at Twitter for 10 hours, that's okay.
Yeah. Well, I thought about doing that. There are times when I've just been on Reddit, Twitter too much. You know, after that CSGO tweet a few months ago, there are things like that where I just kind of want to get away from it. And I have yet to really have a chance to do that. Steven, have you ever taken time to just veg out and leave social media alone?
No, I'm masochistic. I love the abuse.
Well, someone who was very much like that, I don't think he loved the abuse, but I think that just he felt the need a lot of times to respond to the criticism, respond to, you know, people saying stupid things, was Total Biscuit. And, you know, several times we've seen him get to that point where he's just like, I'm done. He's forced, well, not forced, but he told Team Liquid mods, hey, ban me, get rid of me. I can't keep doing this. And so he's left it again. And he's in a position where he doesn't need to be dealing with that kind of excess stress. But how have you, we'll start with you, Steven, how have you found ways to deal with it? I mean, we've seen the Twitter tirades. I'm not trying to bait you into talking about that. I'm just curious, when you do receive stress through Reddit, Team Liquid, whatever, how do you cope with that?
There's not, I mean, like, you either go down into the trenches and you fight, which is always going to be a lose situation. But sometimes it makes you feel better about it. Or I guess you just ignore it and then wait for the circle jerk to swing the other way. Because usually it's kind of like an ebbing and flowing of the circle jerk tide. Massive waves of Reddit semen will eventually flow in your favor again, so you just have to wait it out. If you fuck up and do something, it'll be bad for a while, and then people forget.
Yeah, I deleted my Reddit account 3 months ago. Didn't go back,
Nice.
haven't been back since.
Sure.
I occasionally get linked to pieces and I'll go and read it, but in general, I try and avoid it at all costs now because it just for all the great things that people write about you, which is really nice, because obviously I said we're human, so we like praise as well.
Mm-hmm.
There's always a couple of idiots, and they do ruin it. And I can tell you very honestly and openly, and I wouldn't normally talk about this sort of stuff in the past, but there have been times when people have written things that are so horrible that I've spent 2 or 3 days chewing them, and I'm not going to do that anymore. I just refuse to be baited into doing that. And people try it on Twitter with me, and the great thing about Twitter is that you can mute them or block them. So I've got hundreds more on my mute and block list than I ever had before, and I feel better for it. So yeah.
Well, I think one of the things I've found really hard, and I talked about this. I did a little stream earlier discussing the Ding It streaming platform and just some of the technology behind it. And one of the things was brought up about like whether or not it gives me ulcers. Getting into these Reddit arguments about Ding It. And something I realized the other day is, I don't know if you guys remember this, but there was that whole Patreon fiasco where I launched that Patreon, and there was a lot of negative community backlash as if I was some other party that had come previously, asked for money, screwed them over, and was back at it again. And one of the comments in that thread was that in one of the threads they said, you handle things really well as far as people saying horrible shit. And I realized I don't do that anymore. I used to calmly respond, kind of like in the neuro fashion where I say, hey, this is what's going on, and not really eating the bait. But I don't find myself doing that anymore. Now I eat the bait. I can't count the number of people I've just said fuck off in a Reddit comment. I shouldn't be doing that. And I'm starting to realize as I see Total Biscuit go that way and I see, Steven get into certain fights and stuff, that I'm starting to kind of go down that path of not handling that shit well. And I think eventually
the problem is like it's too much that the problem is the imbalance of power. When you have ultimate accountability and you have unprecedented accountability in this day and age, because every single word that you say is going to be archived a million times over, and the person that you are arguing with has 100% anonymity and 0% accountability. And like that dynamic there is just it's always going to be a lose-lose to engage, and it's always going to be a recipe for disaster, where if somebody says some stupid shit and you're right, it means fuck all. If somebody says some really stupid and hateful shit and you don't respond to it, then it just sits there and it's whatever and it's annoying. If somebody says some stupid shit and you say and then you're wrong, then you get fucked hardcore for it. Like the victories are hollow and meaningless, and the defeats are absolutely excruciating. Like that dynamic there, like it's the kind of shit that like I wish sometimes like fucking every account online was tied to like a social security number, because motherfuckers when they get called out delete when you find out who people are, they delete every fucking thing they have so quickly. It's fucking pathetic. And it's happened before on Twitter. Does anybody remember that guy? Some fucking idiot on Twitter was talking about what did he tweet? He tweeted something like, "Hey, Casey Tron and Destiny, what are you guys gonna do when the donations dry up?" And this fucking idiot had his LinkedIn and his Facebook and everything linked on his Twitter. And this was some fucking mommies and daddy's boy who literally every job that he had was like a business that his dad owned, and everything about his life was fucking pathetic and handed to him. And you started going off on him on Twitter, and he ended up deleting all of his shit. Like it's fucking ridiculous. People who are 100% anonymous all the time and have zero accountability will fucking say anything they want online without ever being like held to answer for it. And then anything that you say, you can get completely fucked for it. So it's like, yeah, fuck that. The whole scenario is like super fucked.
I think it's important to remember though that like we're very privileged to have the position that we have, and it's only because of the fans and people that tune in and stuff like that. I'm not being sappy about it. That's what it is, right? So I'm more than happy to have conversations, interact, and do all the things that the fans want to do. No problem with that. We're talking about a very, very small minority of people, but they make such a big impact on people's lives.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that.
And you're right. It does become difficult to cope. I mean, your question was, how do you cope with it? I've coped with it in the past by ignoring it. I've coped using the Twitter tools that I've been given, which is muting and blocking when I felt appropriate. I've been criticised for that in the past as well, but whatever protects me. I think you can deal with it in a number of different ways, and different people do. I mean, Richard Lewis has a great. He just retweets people that say shit about him, right? Which, by the way, you can't do anymore because that's against the terms of service. But he does that, and I find that I was like, oh god, I couldn't do that. It's almost like, I don't know. To me, it feels bad because then that person gets picked on by a load of other people that are anti what his opinion is, and then you're going down a really horrible road of power abuse or something. And I know Richard doesn't do it for that, but he does it because he doesn't care. He'll like literally give them attention to say, look, I don't care what you think of me, just retweet it. And I think I admire it in a way, but I couldn't personally do it. It's just but everyone deals with it in a different way. Some people don't read Reddit at all. I know casters that will not read it, will not go there. They have a very low-key Twitter account. They will very rarely post any opinions or anything thoughtful of their own thoughts. It'll just be advertorial, or it will be promoting other streams or whatever, and that's fine too. So I think there's a ton of ways of dealing with it. It depends how thick your skin is. I mean, Steven's skin's like as thick as a rhino, so he doesn't give a shit. But mine's
Yeah, but I do. No, that's
sensitive.
not. That's I do.
You do have thick skin.
No, yeah, but it still bothers me sometimes. So like, I
Ah.
can't imagine like how an average functioning human being deals with it. Like, I don't know. I don't think it's possible. I really don't.
No, and it's not a surprise that we see a lot of talented people not do very much in esports when they've been, they come in
have,
and
like,
front
the
of a stage or
breakdowns.
something. Yeah,
Yeah.
they literally can't cope with it because it's just so overpowering.
Yeah, for sure.
The likes of us who've been
HT.
around for God knows how many years, we've kind of grown up with it and got used to it, I suppose. But the new guys that get thrown in at the deep end on shows, God, I have no idea how they cope with that stuff.
HD Starcraft had like a 300,000+ viewer YouTube channel, and I think he like quit everything after he casted that one event. And the community feedback and that thread shitted on him so fucking hard.
Holy shit! Like a 300 subscriber or viewer?
350,000 subs on his YouTube channel. Here, this guy.
Holy shit!
This guy was like, back in the day, I guess you don't remember because there were two big Starcraft.
Like 2010, 2011.
Yeah, it was Husky and HD Starcraft, and those were the two big guys. And then HD casted, I think, an MLG, and then there was a thread that popped up about it where people absolutely fucking crucified him. It was the most brutal fucking. And he got and he pretty much completely quit the community after that. And he was just done.
Damn, that's huge to give up. So I think one of the other issues is the dynamic of you being the one person that might be, and then everyone else, like let's say just a Reddit thread for an example, is when you have so many more against you. Like if you, so I said, this really gets to me. Downvotes really get to me, and I know that kind of sounds lame and petty, but if I go in there and I say something completely objective and completely just, someone says, why are you giving this information? I made a comment. I said, I worked several years in information security and video transport over to IP. I know a thing or two about this, et cetera, et cetera. And someone comes in, and because it was a ding it, this got upvoted to like 5, and then it went down to 6. And I'm like, 6 people came here, read a perfectly objective, logical, truthful statement, and were like, fuck you. And I just look at that, and it's like, fuck you, fuck you, fuck you, fuck you.
Yeah, but then that's almost a different.
Do you remember when
you can't have any logic behind the upvotes and downvotes on Reddit. I mean, if you follow by the rules, then that's fine. But no one ever follows the rules. There's always an objectionable reason or an emotional reason as to why they've upvoted or downvoted something.
Do you remember?
I can read something really cool, but if it's by someone who's giving me a load of shit, I'm going to downvote it.
Do you remember a long time ago when I got into a big fight on the Eve subreddit over some stupid shit, Lycan?
That was a long time ago.
Yeah, there was a comment in that thread was so absolutely insane. There was a comment in that thread where I tried to explain my point for like the 50 millionth time, and everything I was saying in that thread was getting downvoted so hard. And the guy that responded literally said, I'm not like paraphrasing, it's not stupid, okay? I had like 2 fractions written, and I was explaining how this will cancel out with this in the equation, and the guy said, in multiplied fractions, he said, those are 2 separate fractions. You can't just cancel those out like that. Like, this is literally probably 6th or 7th, probably 5th or 6th grade math, and he had like 45 upvotes, and I had like 100 and whatever. Like, literally.
And did that fuck with you?
No, it just reaffirms everything that, I mean, it's people in general, the large majority of people probably in the world, at least in the Western world, can only see things in one way. Like, nothing is nuanced and everything is either all good or all bad. It's all I've said this a million fucking times, and every single day everything proves it out. Well, like, look at right now with fucking Ding It. Ding It is all bad. I still think that Ding It is probably trash, but the amount of fucking autistic shit that people say is unbelievable about Ding It. Like, well, the plugin doesn't work on my computer, and I downloaded it, and they gave me a whole bunch of malware, and I think that and like the suggestions to Maddles and the suggestions to Ding It. Why don't you guys just dump your plugin? You realize their entire business model is built on that. Why would you give that suggestion? Like, how fucking stupid do you have to be to give that suggestion? Why don't you just change your entire business model? But it gets upvoted because people are fucking stupid. Because people see, Ding It bad.
Please go and sell oranges instead. You'll be much better at it.
So dumb. But so people see, yeah, so right now on Reddit, you can literally go and post any single bad thing you want about Ding It, and it'll get upvoted to the fucking stars. You can post about how you're too stupid to get a plugin to work on your Chrome browser. You can post that you're too stupid to probably not click on ads and run casinolottery.exe, and now your shit got fucked and you've got viruses. You can put, like, there's a ton of stupid shit that you can write now about Ding It, and it'll get upvoted just because Ding It's bad is like the new meme or whatever, so.
Oh. All right. Well, I think we covered a lot of the social media aspects, and it's, I've always enjoyed watching Total Biscuit tweet. I've always enjoyed, in particular, Happy Total Biscuit tweeting. But he's got to do what's good for him, and
Absolutely.
I think
I think it's a sad loss because I've always loved his stuff, but actually I haven't always loved his stuff. I mean, sometimes we would argue, but I enjoyed that too.
Look at this! Look at this shit! How is this upvoted so much? Sorry. Go ahead.
No, hold on.
Stephen, leave Reddit alone.
This is the second most upvoted
Stop
comment.
going there.
So fucking stupid. It's so fucking stupid. It's not even like that. How many people thought this was a good thing to upvote? It's not even that it's like this guy said it. It's that like 90 other people thought this was like a really good thing to upvote. Like, yeah, why doesn't Ding It just get rid of the plugin? Like, it must be really easy, right? Sorry.
No,
go
it's
ahead.
fine.
Sorry, I think I totally interrupted.
All right. Let's see. All right, I want to talk about this. I've literally all day. I'm in a course this week. I can barely focus because I'm trying to think of how to breach the subject in the way that is going to make you the most comfortable, Steven. Not that you need a safe space or anything, but just in a way that allows you to just get something off your chest without, being upset. I want to talk about the Unfiltered episode yesterday. And furthermore, I want to talk about the Twitter debate, if we can call it that, between you and Thorin. So I don't even know what to fucking title this. Unfiltered / Thorin / Richard Lewis / ESPN / Starcraft 2. There. I think that covers it all. I just can't think of a finesse way to do this. Anyway, so let's start off first with your discussion with Thorin on Twitter. I say this.
We calling it a discussion.
Yeah, I couldn't say it with a straight face. I'm curious. When I watch a movie and I see a bad guy, right? Like there's the you ever watch Inglourious Bastards?
Yeah.
All right, so the Colonel, the Jew hunter, right?
Yeah.
And I wonder, like, what if within this world you could stop him for a second, say you're a really smart man, obviously from the way you articulate yourself and your certain views on different things. I want to know how you genuinely can acquiesce to what your position is. Something like that. These villains in these different ways who have seemingly illogical outlooks on different things. I would like within that universe to be able to question them and say, what is your thought process behind this? So I say to you, as someone I respect and also I like Thorin, I'm curious why you flew off the handle immediately.
I don't think I flew off immediately. I think we kind of gradually both built each other up to it. You don't think so? Somebody in here's got the imagery of the entire thing.
Yeah, I mean, I could be wrong, but
No, we gradually built each other up to it, I think. Here's like a little explanation, I guess. How old are you?
28.
Like, you're 28? Okay, I'm 27, and Paul has a few years on both of us.
I'm 29.
So, like, this is something that I was involved in really heavily when I was growing up. Mainly on the internet, a little bit in real life friends too, but mainly on the internet. And maybe this is going to sound absolutely fucking stupid to a lot of people, especially younger people now, because this doesn't happen on the internet as much anymore. But like back in the day, man, insult heavy humor was very fucking important. Being able to one up somebody that's fucking dissing you was like a huge fucking thing on the internet. Fucking IRC rooms and fucking chat rooms, on the old fucking vent servers and the fucking MSN chat groups. Like, this shit was important, okay? If somebody was going to shit talk you on one of these services, you had fucking battle.net chat rooms. If somebody's gonna diss you, you had to be ready to one up them, okay? So everything that I have and like my internet like lingo vernacular, like a lot of that came from those days, and I was pretty good at it. I was pretty good at being able to always come out on top of the insult wars. That's one of the reasons why I like started streaming and I enjoy playing games, because making fun of people, not like in a malicious way, I would say, I guess, but I guess depending on who you are, it could be seen as malicious. This is kind of like one of the things that I do. I think Thorin to some extent probably grew up similarly because he seems to do the bants too. Insofar as like arguing with people online, for me personally, it's very rare that I take something like personally. Like I wasn't genuinely upset about anything that Thorin said. Like I thought it was just bants. Maybe Thorin feels differently. I'm not sure. If he does, then some of the things that he said probably crossed the line. But I mean that. But then I went fairly hard too. Probably not in the same way. But for the most part, I guess like bants are bants, and when you start banting with someone, like it's all bants. I guess some people see it and they want to like take it as like you're doing this like huge personal, malicious, vindictive attack on somebody's character, and you need to break down and analyze it. But for the most part, it's just bants, I guess. Yeah.
All right, because I mean, maybe I just was overly sensitive reading it, but I felt like it was mommy and daddy, you know, punching each other over the dinner table. Like it seemed extremely violent arguing.
Yeah, no, I mean, it's not like, I guess some people view it, everybody views it in different ways. It's not like I'm trying to find people on the internet and I'm just like levying insult after insult and bullying the fuck out of them. Like, Thorin gave it back pretty well, and we went at it for a while. But I mean, that was just it. I didn't wake up the next morning like scared that of anything, or, you know, it was just bants, you know?
Okay. All right, just bants. Before we kind of go into segue this into the unfiltered discussion, Paul, did you have any thoughts on just, I don't know if you saw that exchange?
Yeah, I did, and you know, to be honest,
it was pretty brutal. I'm not gonna lie.
It was very brutal. But I know both of you. I respect both of you. I like both of you. And I mean, I'm finding myself in these positions a lot recently as well. I know I have, more often than not, a very half glass full kind of attitude towards esports. I want it to succeed. I want the players to succeed. The players to, you know, become these huge superstars, which they are becoming. There's no doubt about that. I want it to be accepted in the mainstream. I don't care if they call it a sport or whatever they want to call it. I don't really care, but I want it to be accepted. I want people to stop dissing us. I want the BBC, for instance, who have been making sly jokes about esports today, to stop doing that and treat it seriously. So those are the things I want for the industry. But and because of that, I'm probably a bit more glass half full most of the time, I guess. I have my days for sure. And I also have a lot of friends in esports and people I respect for being there a long time. Yourself, Stephen, obviously been a long time. Thorin's been there, I think, probably longer than I have. Richard, probably a little bit less, but a long time as well. So all these people, I want to see them succeed too. And it frustrates me that we can't all get on. But I suppose it'd be a weird world if we all got on and we're all happy and everything was flowers and, you know, daisies and cakes and stuff every day. But at the same time, I also know you away from the public a bit more, so I know you guys are good guys. It's really infuriating when I see you kind of ripping shreds out of each other. But I also think you're right in a way that it's probably where we've all come from. I mean, I remember sitting on an IRC channel in '99, and if someone came to your channel and gave you shit, you went into his channel and gave him shit. it was kind of accepted that if you
start bringing the logs out,
you were kind of a pussy, and so I know where you're coming from on that as well. But I think outwardly, I think we also have to remember that sometimes our public personas, you know, they project on other people, and people sort of sit there and go, "Hold on a minute, that's a bit weird. Like, that seems a bit harsh to me." And I think sometimes we forget about that. But you know, I think the exchange was brutal. I think the stuff last night on Unfiltered, I sat there, I was very kind of like, God, I wish this was more positive, but, you know, there wasn't much you could get out of it. But here's the thing, right? Removing all of the snide remarks and whatever you took from it into, you know, if you're a StarCraft fan, I'm sure you would have been mortified by some of the things that the two guys said. But here's the truth, okay? They were right. So, whether
about
you
how
like
much,
the way,
though?
Well, about quite a lot, actually, I think. And the problem is...
right about...
that
What?
all sorts of... We can go into the exactly... We can
Okay.
banter and argue if you like, and we can throw some insults at each other. But the point I'm trying to make is that they weren't wrong about a lot of stuff last night. I think the majority of people were just upset about the way they delivered it, and that's just their style. So if you don't like the style, that's fine. You can separate the style stuff from actually were they making some good points about StarCraft and the scene right now, and I think they were.
Okay, I can agree with that. Before we go into that though, I want to talk to Steven about we have the imager of the conversation, and I feel like at least 3 or 4 more tweets should have gone on before this comment gets made. But it's Thorin makes a comment about TLO being fake. You make a comment about his logic behind that being silly. Then Thorin makes a comment about rape, which I feel is a pretty quick escalation.
Jesus fuck.
And then you
yeah,
say, try talking about how much Polish people hate niggers again. That worked out real well last time. And I feel like that was the last 2 tweets from you.
You feel like I was the one that went
No, both of you. Both of you.
On me?
No,
Yeah,
both of you. I think both of you, second tweet in, your second tweet, his second tweet just kind of ascended fucking like Bronze League to Diamond. Like, you went real
I guess,
fucking...
like, when my first tweet I didn't feel was that bad. Like, I hate it when people make... Richard Lewis does all the fucking time. It really bothers me. I hate it when people make, like, little vague, wishy-washy statements. Feel like, I know this one guy who said this one thing who was pretty fucking mean, but I'm not gonna say who, or I'm not gonna say exactly what. Like, when people say that, like... And I think I tweeted at Thorin the first. I was like, Jesus, like, this is so high school. Like, come on, you can do better than that. I'm pretty sure that was, like, my first tweet. And then Thorin is like, oh, I didn't rape anybody. It was like, holy shit. So then, and then Thorin decided that he was gonna go full Richard Lewis that night and start a fight with like every single person in the community. And I was stuck in Germany doing fuck all, so I figured, why not? Let's do it. And then yeah.
Okay, so let's go into the discussion last night, Steven. I agree with you, Paul. There were a lot of things that they said last night that were true. They're very accurate. I'd say that one of the things that both of them were kind of out of touch on was the sentiment of the community and the awareness of the community about the Korean scene. I think the community is very aware about the struggles of the Korean scene, that, you know, StarCraft players... When I first came in, I had that misconception in 2013 about, oh, you know, StarCraft players are legends over there. They walk around, you know, people are like, oh my God, Flash, you're like, you know, Ken Griffey Jr. Here, let me get your autograph. Like, and now I've learned that's not really the case at all. And so I think that the community is a little more aware of the nuances of pro gaming in Korea, as well as what the new changes are doing to Korea than Thorin and Richard gave them credit for. And I'd like to know, Steven, what are some of the things from last night that kind of you thought were not properly portrayed or that they were wrong about?
I'm not gonna lie, I didn't watch any of it. I know most of Thorin's thoughts on StarCraft, and Richard Lewis is never gonna say anything to contradict Thorin ever, so I didn't see any point in watching it. I don't feel like, I mean, what did he say anything outside of what the... Can I like try to guess most of what he said? It's a shame that we're region locking down Koreans. They're not given fair opportunities. The Korean scene is going to get strangled and died. Every single foreigner on every single team is making multi-$1,000 a month salaries. All these shitty foreigners are making money while the Korean scene is dying. Koreans are literally trying to feed their families with their 100%
Are you sure you didn't watch it?
Yeah, am I getting kind of close here? Like, I don't. That's probably what I guess. Most
So,
of the things.
all right, let's break it down. The first thing I want to address is the foreigners getting kicked out. And I'm not a huge soccer fan, but does soccer, Paul, do they have region, like you have your club soccer, right? Which is where you play within your countries and all that.
Yeah.
And then, so League of Legends has NA, LCS, they have South America, LCS, they have, or whatever you call it and all that. Why is region locking such a trigger word in StarCraft for the fans of Koreans?
Okay, so I think this is unique to StarCraft in many ways because the best players are Korean, and they're probably the best 16 to 20 are Korean. Okay, so if they're Korean and they're forced to play in Korea, then as a fan, I'm deprived of watching the best players in the world go to any event in the world and play against other players, whether they're foreign or whatever. So that's the first issue. So as a fan, I'm disappointed because it means I can't watch these great players that I love watching playing GSL and Pro League, but I can't watch them at a DreamHack. I can't watch them at an IEM. I can't
You can watch them at all the
Battlegrounds.
Korean events and Pro League and whatnot.
I know, but I want to watch them play against the other players. That's part of the appeal has always been for me to watch this global entity play each other. And even with League of Legends, you know, region locking, it still doesn't preclude those teams from going to play in an IEM. You still see 4 to 8 teams turning up to an IEM, and it's a couple of American teams, a couple of Koreans, maybe a Chinese, whatever. They're all playing together in a tournament, and I want to see how they compare. It's the great age-old question of, are they really that much better? And now we're deprived of that. So I'm disappointed as a fan, but I think the question we have to ask is, why has this decision been made? Someone has made this decision, or a group of people have made this decision, and they've done it because they believe that it will benefit the scene. I can't for a second believe that someone has sat down and gone, do you know what, let's fuck the Koreans. It'll be really funny, right? Really funny. Let's just completely screw them. I don't for a second believe that anyone's done that. So that's the first part of it. The second part is, if it's done on a business point, and we have to admit, this is one of the hard truths, I'm going to say this, people are going to hate me for it, but it's the absolute hard truth. StarCraft is a much smaller game now than it was a year ago, much, much smaller than it was 2 years ago, and terrifically smaller than it was 3 or 4 years ago. And if you aren't aware of that, then you've got blinkers on, and you have to wake up to that. Now, because it's a smaller game, it means it has smaller investment, smaller reach, and because of that, it means that less money goes in. And I'm amazed, staggered, in fact, that we still have the amount of money going into the whole scene as a whole. It's incredible we've still got that money going in. It's fantastic, and we should hold on to it. But at the same time, we shouldn't be blinded by the fact that everything is rosy in the StarCraft world, because it isn't right now. And that's why I said I agree with many of the points that two guys made last night. I mean, where are the next boxers coming from? Where are the next flashes? Where are the next J-Dogs? I don't know. I don't know where they're coming from.
They're not
like the
coming
only
from
one I know
Korea.
in the last.
Do you know where the next boxers and J-Dogs are?
Tell me.
They're playing League of Legends, and no amount of non-regional
that is
is
also
ever
very
going to
good
change that. Is ever
Yes.
going to change that.
And
The boxers and the flashes of today are the fakers of today. They're not playing fucking StarCraft. They're playing League.
No, and you're right. And I hate to bring it up because it feels really bad for those that love StarCraft. Now, I love StarCraft too, but it is true. It is true. There's a lot of investment in League of Legends in Korea, and a lot of players aspire to be League of Legends players, or Dota players actually as well. And StarCraft may have even fallen into 3rd or 4th place in Korea, which is almost unthinkable to us that have watched Brood War for the last 10 or 15 years. So I think we just have to be very realistic about where we are in terms of the game right now.
Theoretically,
I think that being sorry, go ahead.
no, just real quick. My thought is with that, the fact that there's no WCS circuit the way there was last year and all the years before, the fact that now the WCS circuit has become IEM and DreamHack, I wonder if people were saying, and I don't have any inside information, this is all just theoretical, but that they said, hey, we want to drop StarCraft, like we don't want to put the money into running it. So
maybe.
Blizzard's like, hold on, keep doing IEM, at least keep doing DreamHack, we'll put money into those, okay? Because that won't be as much to run a whole different WCS circuit. We'll put money into those.
Absolutely.
And then, and now we still have a WCS circuit. Because if they didn't do that, they could have completely region locked Europe, North America. We'd have the exact same thing.
Well, we could have ended up with absolutely nothing.
Yeah.
That could be why the change. And you're absolutely right. It could be why. We won't know. We probably never know, actually. But you could be right. I mean, I can give you a Gfinity outlook, which is that when we got towards the end of last year, we ran StarCraft, as you well know, and we did 4 events, and we saw a massive decline in viewership, event on event. It didn't matter what we did, whether we improved the production, got better players, got better casters, advertised better. It didn't matter what we did; it went down every single time until we spent a huge amount of money on all of those different events, putting them on, that we didn't see a return for. And I'm not expecting a like for like, we put 50 grand in, we get 50 grand back out, or we get 100 grand. I'm not expecting that, but I am expecting some form of return, and that return is in the form of viewership or support or advertising, or sponsors want to sponsor the event, and we didn't see that. So we were, we got to the end of the year. I don't know where we are because I'm slightly on the way out of Gfinity right now, but we were actually saying, I don't know if we'll do a single event in 2016 for StarCraft. And if we did, it would be probably a one-off. And that's about it. And that's the reality of where we are with the game.
Yeah. Steven, I'm sorry, what were you going to say?
I feel like we're conflating a couple different issues here. The StarCraft scene is definitely small, but even if you realize that, like, there are still arguments to be made for or against region locking, right? Like, I don't
Yeah.
think the StarCraft scene being small, like, if it was large, I don't think it would have much bearing on this argument. I understand earlier what you were saying, Paul, about how you want to see the best players playing and winning as many events as possible, which is largely what Thorin's thoughts are. Um, but I mean, like, the goal with the way that they have the region setups right now is to try to please both parties, because there are some people who don't necessarily want to see Koreans winning every single event, and they want more of
Sure.
like what we got last DreamHack with the funny interviews with Drogo and Uthermal, and you know, just getting to see people from their countries winning games is really exciting for people. While I understand that might be disappointing for you to not see Koreans winning every single event, I mean, it's equally disappointing.
Hold on, because that's kind of misquoting me, Stephen. Because I don't necessarily want to see Koreans. In fact, I want to see a British player win something. I want to see a South African.
Okay, but we're talking about
the Australia, but I want to see them do it in a legit way, right? I don't
sure, but that's not going to happen right now.
I don't consider the DreamHack event as a premier event, because how can you classify that on Wikipedia as a premier event? It just blows my mind, because
sure, I understand that, but
I don't understand it. So that's not what I mean. I don't want to see
happen.
necessarily Koreans winning everything. I want to see the Koreans, because they are the best right now. I want to see them tested against what we have in the foreign land, if you like, against them, and I think it's healthy for those players to play those players too.
But we have 6 years of that. But you don't. It's not going to be getting better by getting raped by Koreans in a one-off tournament and then never seeing them again. Like, that doesn't help. The only thing that gets better.
This discussion before, haven't we, about if we merge areas or play. I mean, when players were going out to Code S, when players used to do that, I'm pretty sure every single one of them came back a better player. Naniwa came back better. Stefano came back better. They all came back better players.
Yeah, but that's because they were living in Korea, playing on the Korean ladder with other players.
But they can't do that now.
Sure, but having Koreans, like, if you spend all of your time playing on a certain ladder where there are no good players, and then the Koreans come over and then they rape you in an IEM and then they go back, what did you gain from that? You gain nothing.
No, I understand that too.
If the ladder situation was cleaned up more, like, I would agree with your sentiments. But as it stands right now, Koreans are just much better than the vast majority of almost every other foreign player at the moment, save maybe one or two that can.
But why is there punishment that we lock them away from being able to earn a living?
I mean, it's not. Well, you've instantly assumed that they're entitled to make a living by coming overseas and taking all the money. So now you're asking me when I say I don't.
In any other sport if any other sport portrayed the fact that they were able to come and hold great tournaments, they would open them up. I mean, I don't think there's
I don't know if that's necessarily true.
For instance, that allow.
I mean, like, in the World Cup, how many times can like one country enter? Like, imagine if I know fuck all about football, but like, imagine the World Cup if like Brazil had like 8 teams in the World Cup because they're like the best people at football. It's like, okay, well, we only want to see Brazilian teams compete.
I mean,
we don't want to see
these
these other shitter teams come in.
Give analogies to real sports because there's nothing really out there like that. The closest I can think of is
tennis.
And tennis does have some closed-off events. It does. But all of the big events that you see around the world, Wimbledon, Australia, the US Open, French Open, they all open their doors and you can qualify weeks ahead in advance to get in. And they don't put any restrictions on players from, if Spain suddenly have got 5 players who are in the top 6 and they're brilliant. They don't suddenly say, well, sorry, Spain, you guys are way too good right now. We're going to only let you have 2 spots at Wimbledon.
I think that...
I guess, like, there are, like, this is something where there's infinite examples where why does anybody watch high school football? Because they like the teams, because they go to the high schools, because they have children in high schools. Yeah. Why does anybody watch college football when there's NFL? NFL players are infinitely better than college shitters, but people still watch college football. It's like the 3rd most popular sport in the United States. Like,
but they watch college football because they have it's kind of like the reason that you can look at League of Legends, right? And people will become a fan of the team Cloud9,
like TSM,
and even though even though a player goes away, they still have that loyalty to Cloud9. People have their alma mater. That's why college football is so successful.
Sure, people have vested interests for tons of different reasons that exist independent of player skill. For some reason, I don't know why, Thorin can never understand this, which is weird because it seems like he spends most of his time fighting fanboys in every single community that he goes to. But this is like a fact of human psychology. People, like, imagine in the United States if, like, for the NFL, like, every single year, every single NFL fan in the entire country changed their favorite team based on who won the Super Bowl. And then next year, like everybody is a Patriots fan or whatever. Now everybody's like a fan of this team because they won, or they're the best. Like, but it doesn't work that way. How many people do you know that have favorite NFL teams that they admit are always fucking bad and will never win the Super Bowl? Like, there are plenty of people that exist like this. Maybe even the majority of people. Plenty of people like to root for their own country, their own people. Like, this isn't even up for debate. Like, it's just a fact.
Okay, so hold on.
Now you can argue. Now we can argue like whether or not like I guess like what it should be. But I just think that it's really short-sighted to make these claims as a person that like I only want to see the best of the best, and I think the best of the best should be competing here, and then to not realize that you might be in the minority for that opinion, or at the very least, there's a very large amount of people that completely disagree.
Sure, I know. I said that straight up front. I said, as a fan, right, I prefer to see all the players playing at an event. It's just a very selfish, it's what I enjoy watching.
This is one of the reasons why a lot of people...
I don't know if that's a popular view or an unpopular view. I don't know. I honestly don't know.
Sure. This is one of the reasons why a lot of people got mad at Thorin, because Thorin's like first tweet, I think, about almost everything was super inflammatory, and it was he'd no true Scotsman, the entire fucking StarCraft 2 fan base, where if you like watching people that aren't playing at the highest level of skill, you're not a true StarCraft fan. Like some shit like that. Like, holy fuck, like what a way to start a discussion, like how many other sports could you say that exact same thing about, right? This isn't even a debated thing. Like there are tons of people across tons of sports, across all of history, that have voted for fan favorites that aren't always, the best of the best,
Well, I think we're in an industry of popularity. We understand that voting for stuff is usually a popularity contest and not actually a measurement of any skill.
So
sure.
the thing I want to address with this, where you guys are talking about, I kind of want to reel it back real quick. First, we have the reality of the current situation, which is there very well isn't enough money that these companies are willing to dedicate to give us both independent IEM DreamHack events and give us the full European, North American WCS circuit.
Well, we don't know that, but I think that's a fair assumption.
Right. We don't know it, but we're assuming. So let's say that is the case. Now the only option to keep WCS going, which Blizzard has obviously made it very clear they want competitive StarCraft to continue, but with working with the partners they have, the only other option is to put IEM and DreamHack there, and in doing so, while also accommodating the desire for region locking, they've said, all right, I guess that means Koreans don't get to come to IEM and DreamHack. So that kind of takes the fan side of things out for you, Paul, where you want to see people come to an IEM or a DreamHack and compete. Now that is the vehicle for players, for foreign players, and we no longer have that with the current dynamic.
Yeah, I mean, that is the reality. I think that is probably the reality. I think one of the things that came up last night on Unfiltered was that this could be communicated so much better, and I agree with that too. I think if we'd had an example of why this had been done or what the objective was, I think a lot of us would have been a lot more okay with it, because we'd have at least understood what we might not have agreed or been disappointed, for instance, not being able to watch some of these great Koreans mingling with all of the foreign players, but we would have at least gone, okay, that makes sense now, or I understand it's either that or we have nothing. And I think I'm sure if you ask Thorin, faced with having no scene whatsoever and no money in the competitive scene, or having something, I think everyone would take something. It doesn't mean we have to be happy with it, but we would all take something to keep it alive and keep it going. So, yes, you're right in a way that if the assumptions that we're making are true, then that would explain some of it. But it's still, still disappointing from my point of view as a fan, because I want to see these players playing all of the different players.
Right, I agree, and I think we can all agree that the current situation, it does suck, because they only have 2 seasons now of SSL, 2 seasons of GSL, so that when you take, they get more money if you make it in.
Yeah, but hold on, because I think this is a little bit of a myth, right? Because I did some calculations earlier, and I worked out that a guy that finishes in top 16 of Code S 2 seasons in a row gets more than he would have if he finished in 3 seasons of top 16 Code S last year. So I think they've done their sums. Blizzard and their partners have done their sums and figured it out and put more money. There's more money for Code A, there's more money for Code S, and there's more money for lower positions. So, but I think the ones it does hurt, and Thorin was right about this, is the guys that don't get through. Now, Thorin can often say things about players who don't make it. They don't deserve to make it if they can't be bothered to make it or practice or whatever. And I would totally agree with that. Well, we have to apply the same rule to GSL. If they go out of the first 2 rounds, they go back to Code A and then they drop out. Well, okay, yeah, it is 6 months without any money, and they can't go and play the foreign circuits either. And that is harsh, but at the same time, that's where we're at right now. That's the system. So they know that going in. So if they aren't practicing as hard as they possibly can, and doing so to make sure they've got every chance they have of getting through, then they don't deserve the spot in the place anyway. Now that leads on to the next part, of course, which is then, well, what about all these crappy conditions they're living in, and they don't get a chance to play properly, and they don't get to practice against the other players, and that's another issue to deal with as well. So I think these things are all they are sort of interlinked.
The Thorin counter argument, though, the Thorin counter argument to that, though, would be even if the Koreans didn't get into Code A, the ones that tried really hard and just didn't make it, it's not fair that the foreigners then are still getting paid when they're not as good as the Koreans that didn't make it.
Yeah, and I see that point. I think it's a reasonable point to discuss. I mean, I wouldn't go as far as to saying those players don't deserve it. That's the system. They're in it, right? They can't do anything about it. It's not their fault. But at the same time, I think we should discuss that kind of thing because it is a point. I mean, the 32nd best player in Korea is probably good enough to have won the DreamHack last weekend. I find that a bit frustrating. I think I would if I was a Korean player, right? I'd be tearing my hair out about it. But that's the system that they're in. So don't blame the foreign players for that because that's not their fault. That's not, they don't make the rules. They can have some influence now and again, and they can and try and sway people to do their thing. But I guarantee you, they're not making those decisions. So let's be a bit more pragmatic about that.
I think the one last thing, because I think we just covered a couple different important areas about the new dynamic, not only for Koreans but the foreigners. But one other thing I wanted to ask you is, we'll kick this off with Destiny. We've always talked about this. I think I can tell what you guys are going to say, but with it being now the reality, and I feel that the angst that people feel, the people who like seeing Koreans at the DreamHacks and the IEMs, I think that what they're feeling is going to be a growing pain as we go into this era of only foreigners at these events. But I'm curious if you guys think that having these foreigners at these events and us actually having an established foreign scene where finally we're going to see a foreigner who's dominant. Yes, he's not dominant against Koreans, but he's the one who's coming in, and when DreamHack comes up, it's Penguin, right? Penguin every time, top 4 finish. 4 tournaments in a fucking row. He's on a tear, and one day he's going to make it to first place. People getting that hype, and like Sweden's like, well, Sweden and America, because he's half and half, is all like, oh my God, Penguin. Is that more important to the possible longevity of what StarCraft we have at the moment?
I think it will give the foreign players more hope, and therefore they might put more effort in. But then again, we could then say, well, why weren't you doing it before when there was the same incentive? And now I think you can argue there's more incentive for them now.
Yeah, but you can make that argument
but
for so many different, like everything related to affirmative action.
It's
like
very...
black people, why didn't you just do this before? Why did you have to get the standard women? No, that's not a joke, Lycan. That's the entire argument behind affirmative action.
I'm not saying it's a great argument, Steve. I'm just saying it is a hollow argument. But you could ask that question. It'd be a reasonable thing to ask. But I agree. I think they will have more incentive now to play and to practice and to shooting for titles and money. But there's a little bit of me that thinks that's still a bit hollow. I'm not convinced that people will start thinking, oh, I get really excited because this guy is going to go on a run. Because in the back of our minds, we're all smart people in this community, and we all sort of go, yeah, but it's still not Code S, is it? And they probably still won't get a BlizzCon, and if they do, they'll probably get beaten. And I think all the time that's there in the background, how can you enjoy someone winning time and time again, even if they are a foreigner? I don't distinguish between the players. I'm sorry, I don't. I distinguish about how brilliant they are. I don't have... I'd love to see a British player. I said to you before, I'd love to see a British player do well, but it has to be legit. There's no point in seeing a British player winning multiplayer I-Series, with all due respect to them, if only British players are allowed to go and play that. I'm not interested in that. That's just me. Other people might be. Other people might find that really interesting, but I can tell you from a business point of view, viewing figures, nothing. They're going to be very little for that. until we have a guy that's out there playing in Code S and then comes back to Britain, and then all of those people are going to be like, wow, he's come back to Britain, he's going to play in the British League. Yeah, excellent, I want to see that. I want to see how he gets on against other British players. I want to see if any of those players can beat him. Maybe they could go to Code S. So all the time we've got Code S as being the pinnacle of everything. Anything else is not going to measure up. And I'm not trying to take away from the achievements of the people that win these tournaments. They still take a tremendous amount of skill and practice and belief to go out there and win those tournaments. But they aren't as satisfying. They can't be as satisfying for the players that win them.
Yeah, but even if they aren't as satisfying, there's still plenty for a ton of people. Like, it's always been that way, that Code S was considered the pinnacle of StarCraft achievement. It's always been that way since the inception of all of StarCraft 2. However, that doesn't mean people didn't get hyped as fuck for the open bracket for MLG. They didn't get hyped as fuck for the IPL events. And they got hyped for these events way before they were shipping Koreans over to start winning MLGs and whatnot.
Why did we start getting Koreans at foreign events? Why did we get that?
Because people thought it would be exciting to finally see.
Exactly. Because we wanted to see the best players at these events.
But that's not the case anymore. Community people, do you want to contradict the thing that I've heard over and over again from people that numbers will drop off as soon as the last foreigners is eliminated from tournament after tournament after tournament? Total Biscuit talked about this phenomenon a ton.
I've seen that.
Yeah. So I mean, like, people want to see. People want to see this stuff happen, even if it doesn't. It doesn't necessarily have to be like.
And I'm not saying it's a bad thing for it to happen. I'm just pointing out that it's not all rosy, so we shouldn't just be sitting back. I think I don't know honestly what some of the other casters think, because I haven't been able to speak to them about it, but they've been relatively quiet, and I'm surprised. But
quiet about what?
About the changes. They haven't really, no one's really come out and been very vocal about them in either positive
you don't
or
think
negative.
So?
So, all right, actually, someone who has been
pretty positive about
away from it, but I haven't seen a huge amount of either way, positive or negative. Just, down the middle.
Did you see Apollo's comments?
I did not know.
Okay, so Apollo came out, and I think that's where the first Thorin stuff started. I don't remember. I might be wrong. I might be bringing Thorin into it just because he's, at the forefront of a lot of things right now.
Blame Thorin.
Yeah. I've learned that I'm very good at getting on his bad side, and yeah. So anyway, Apollo made a comment, or Apollo was defending the the new system and all that, and so I guess my thought is. I just have to say he was defending it, saying, hey, it's good things. And he was telling someone, hey, you don't know what you're talking about. Would you say that knowing Apollo, if Apollo's saying it's good, do you think Apollo genuinely thinks it's good?
This is an opinion. Like,
I don't really understand it. I mean, I respect Apollo's opinion more than most, actually, in StarCraft.
I guess you say
I don't really understand what he said.
Let me see if I can find it, unless someone has the link.
I mean, if he's saying positive things about it, then he may know more. I mean, he probably does know more than us, because he's not just a host or a commentator.
Right.
He's actually
or he could just have a different opinion than you. Maybe he likes watching foreigners more than Koreans, so that could be why. So I mean, like, you're asking.
But I get the feeling that Apollo does enjoy watching the best players play. But that's just my view.
Okay. Yeah, I think that's.
I think one of the problems is, like, we can't. So earlier I said we were conflating issues. I guess now, like, you can't separate everything out and distill it into these, like, crazy vacuums. Like, everything influences everything else. So, like, to some extent, I kind of agree with what Paul is saying, that it is nice watching only the best of the best players play. However, I guess, like, the ultimate question is, right, which is what really all of this is about, is that model sustainable? Yeah. And looking at the decline of StarCraft 2 compared to other esports, and even compared to itself in 2011, 2012, etc., it seems like it's not. So the question, and this is again where I feel like Thorin, like, completely and totally misses it for whatever reason. The question isn't, is region locking fair to the Koreans, or does region lock fuck the Koreans, or is region locking, it's just a horrible system.
I think we can agree that region is bad for the Koreans, right? That's
of course, undoubtedly, yeah, of course. Yeah. I think the thing, but then people want to talk about, is it fair for them? Well, that's not the question. The question is, will region locking lead to, if not slowing the decline of the scene, will region locking lead to boosting excitement about the scene again by giving people foreign fair? And that's really what the conversation is about, right? And I don't know if anybody necessarily has the answer, but that if we see foreigners, winning tournaments and playing tournaments and, getting to compete and getting to do post-game interviews and, the semifinals and the finals are all these names and people and faces and personalities that we recognize. And is that going to be something that ultimately benefits the scene, right? That's right. Kind of what the question comes down to.
I mean, that has to be the goal, doesn't it? That has to
Yeah,
be
because if Koreans start winning everything, and we go back to Brood War, where Brood War, I don't know like how people try to cherry color it or whatever, but like or rose tinted glasses, like nobody gave a fuck about Brood War outside of Korea, period,
Whoa,
anywhere.
whoa,
Nobody really gave a fuck
whoa,
about Brood War
Stephen,
outside Korea, right?
Stephen.
Can we be real? There were like four good foreign players, like fucking Noni, Idra,
Artosis was brilliant back in 2005.
like Brood War was nothing outside of Korea. And these days, if StarCraft 2 goes that same route, it's not like you're going to have this thriving scene of SC2 where all these Koreans are dominating, because StarCraft 2 isn't even really that big in Korea compared to League and even a ton of other games now if you look at the PC bong stats. So I mean, I don't, this idea that like Korea is going to get this foothold, and again that's why I took issue with that statement, like who's the next Flash and the next, but like we already have the next Flash. He's Faker. You know, these guys aren't playing StarCraft. Like he'll be replaced by another Korean player, but that's not where the money's at. And I don't even think you know what, actually, and I'll even say this right now, the StarCraft 2 scene is still in a bubble. I still think that this scene is propped up by more money than it's actually worth, which I think Paul was kind of hinting at earlier. Like, we're still incredibly lucky.
Yeah,
like, holy shit, for as much shit as we could give them, can you imagine if Blizzard wasn't giving out WCS money? Oh, StarCraft would be in a really scary spot.
Yeah. I would go as far as to say that I don't think it would be at IEM. I don't think it would be at DreamHack. I don't think it would be at MLGs, and I don't think it would be at Gfinities. Faceit don't support it anyway. Starladder don't support it. So what are we looking at then after that? We're looking at what? Home Story Cup, which is fantastic. We're looking at stuff that Total Biscuit does. We're looking at stuff Destiny does. We're looking at basically community-run tournaments, which we already know are fantastic. We enjoy them, but they don't have the money backing. And so the biggest event we would have in the year would be potentially a Home Story Cup.
Yeah,
it would be. Probably would be. Yeah. I mean, even with because DreamHack received assistance to run this Blizzard tournament for StarCraft, didn't they? Or did they not?
Yeah.
They did. Even with their assistance, StarCraft 2 had a horrible backseat. I showed up at the venue at 11:40, and there wasn't anybody there. Like half the venue was empty. You saw a bunch of people setting up a stage, and then way back in the corner, the StarCraft 2 finals was already like halfway over. And they had to share a stage with CS:GO the entire time. I say share a stage, where CS:GO had the like 80%, 90% of the stage time. Like that was even with Blizzard assistance. So.
Yeah, and again, I think we should be just thankful that it was on the main stage. Never mind criticising DreamHack for putting it on first or making it a sub game to Counter-Strike. When the realist would say that's the bigger game, of course they're going to put that on the ground, and of course they're going to put all their efforts behind it. I understand I understand your desires, and I understand Thorin's arguments to only ever want to see the best. But like, if we were having this conversation in the context, I don't want to only see the best. I do.
Well, no, yeah, I know what you mean. But what I'm saying is, like, if we were having,
I really enjoyed watching WCS Europe stuff when I was working with it, because you actually got to see players grow and improve and get to a new level. But I also wanted to then see how they would get on against the best in the world.
Sure. If we were having this discussion in a time period where StarCraft 2 was massive and we just had money out the ass, if we were like in 2011, 2012, then I'd be totally okay. Like, yeah, man, like where the scene is thriving, like, yeah, fucking Koreans at every tournament, let's do it. Yeah, to see how they actually stack up. But when we're so like precariously perched on the edge of destruction, on the edge of of complete collapse, right? Because if Blizzard decides to stop supporting StarCraft 2, which I don't think they will, but like if something like that were to happen, the scene would be non-existent. We would be what Super Smash Brothers was like 5 years ago. Like we would be that small. In that state, I think that it makes sense to start looking at ways to promote the scene and get it to grow, which I think is only going to happen if foreigners do well. I really don't see how anybody could disagree with that. Even if you did want to see the best people play the majority of the time or a large amount of the time, I just don't think that model is sustainable going forward.
Yeah, I mean, what it comes down to is, one question is, how should the whole scene be structured? And I think everyone would agree we want to see the best of the best rise to the top and be rewarded for that. That's what you would want, right? But that isn't the reality of the world that we live in. So you're right in that sense that, I mean, I don't know if this is the right way, but I honestly, hands up, I don't know what the answer is either. So I'm not in that position where I was maybe a year and a half ago, where I had some pretty strong ideas and some pretty strong opinions about what I thought would do really well. I don't have those right now, and so this is what we've got. I hope that it does help grow the scene, but I have my doubts.
All right.
I guess we'll see.
Just to real quick go back on the Apollo thing to clarify, it was a response to the ESPN article, and I did want to ask you about that. Did you get a chance to read that, Paul? What are your thoughts?
I thought it was all right. I mean, it wasn't the greatest literary piece I've ever read, but I think Stephen's heart is very well and truly embedded in the scene, and this is Stephen Chu, not you, Stephen Destiny. And I think he has highlighted something that was made into a bit more than perhaps it could have been.
So the problem was,
but I didn't necessarily disagree with some of the things that were written in there. No.
So this is 100% a publicity problem. The article was fine, and I don't think anybody in the Starcraft community.
I think the tweet was very offensive, and
the
I told
tweet
Slasher
was horrible.
Yeah, I
the
told
tweet
Slasher,
was absolutely fucking horrible.
In fact, I've got the log here. I actually told Slasher straight up. I was like, "That's not helpful." And I think Rod was, he's like, "Hey, you kind of bashed us a few times," and I was like, "Well, you've put out." Basically, I've only seen a couple of things on ESPN so far, and they've both been freaking negative. Like, what the hell?
Even if it was negative,
when I read the piece, I was like, well, actually, it's not that bad. But
even if it was negative,
the
like
tweet was quite offensive to me.
Yeah, it was still like the way that you deliver a message. Like, imagine you're like in a relationship, like a wife and a husband. Like, times are really hard, and you can't afford, like to do anything for your anniversary, and like you have that conversation, like it's fine. But imagine you send a text to your wife, and it's something like, "Hey, guess who's gonna have the sickest, most awesome, anniversary date ever? Not us." Like you send like a text message like that. It's like obviously they're gonna be fucking annoyed. Like the tweet for that article was so stupid, was so mind-numbingly fucking stupid. I had a negative reaction before I even read the article, and I'll admit I was one of the people that tweeted like, "Holy shit! Like what a horrible clickbait!" Or like does BuzzFeed hire out talent now to ESPN? Like it was a horribly tweeted article, and I feel bad for the Steven guy too because the article was fine. The article was good.
And he does, to be fair, he does a lot for Starcraft and has done a lot for Starcraft. So. I didn't want to see him get shit like that. It was not particularly fair. But I think it was an ill-advised tweet.
I think that it takes a lot as someone that is invested in StarCraft, not someone that's leaving it behind, just kind of has it in the back pocket for now. Someone that's truly heart, soul, work, whatever, invested in StarCraft. It takes a lot to say something bad about it, like what you said earlier, Paul. And I imagine that as you were going into that kind of there's a little bit of a heavy weight on your chest when you're saying StarCraft is not where it was 4 years ago.
Absolutely. And you imagine what it's like for someone like Apollo, who I love the scene, I love the community, I love the game, I love the players and the teams. I'm very privileged to have worked in it for a long time. But imagine Apollo, who has been drenched in this stuff for every single day for the last 6 years, lived out in Korea, played with the players, understood the game from the day it was in fucking alpha and beta, and has put his life and soul into it in every way, shape and form. Not just as a commentator, but as a host, as a guy in the background, as a guy working on the production, as a guy working on the product, and genuinely loves the scene and the game itself. And then he gets this to deal with this shit. I mean, he's only ever going to look for the positives because he damn well loves the bloody scene and he doesn't want anything to happen to it. So of course he's going to be hoping that it's a good thing. And it must be dreadful for him to think that actually this scene is shrinking or getting smaller. And we had a couple of conversations when I was at ESL with him that we were always sick to death of hearing dead game. It was just, holy fuck, please shut the fuck up about #dead game. It really did piss us off. And we just avoid it all because it was just so annoying. The game is not dead. It's not dying any day soon. But it is getting a smaller scene. And it's, I do say that with a heavy heart, but we have to face facts as well.
Before we take a break and we let you go, Paul, did you see HotBid's thing on the front page of StarCraft Reddit?
No.
He did an Ask FM.
He did. I saw some of it, but I didn't read all of it.
All right, Steven, what are your thoughts?
I didn't miss anything. It's just stupid. No.
Okay. All right. One last thing. I'm sorry. Swear to God. Totally last thing. What do you think of Richard leaving Unfiltered, Paul?
He's leaving
Oh,
Unfiltered.
Oh, you didn't know
of
that.
course.
I didn't know. No.
Yeah, after today, if I'm interpreting this all correctly, he didn't like Chan Man's reaction to everyone else's response, and is leaving the show.
Wow.
So Chan Man was kind of like, let me clarify some things, and through the Twitter chain, and Richard can ping me if he's watching this or if he sees this, and we can correct it. But if I'm understanding correctly, Richard's saying, don't respond. You don't need to respond to them. You don't need to qualify them. From my understanding, that's not what the show is about. It wasn't meant to be a debate show where both sides get represented equally.
It's supposed to be called Unfiltered. I mean, I'll be upfront about it because I was speaking to Richard a little bit yesterday about it and this morning, and I've spoken to Chairman about it as well. I felt the show was exactly what it's supposed to be, unfiltered, right?
Really? I thought it was horrible. Oh shit! I didn't watch it. I guess I can't say that. Just when I envisioned. I mean, I read all the comments, so I feel like I got the gist of it. Was I off? I wasn't that far off of what it actually was, right?
No, you went that far. All I'm saying is it's supposed to be unfiltered, and they were unfiltered. So they met with what was supposed to happen on the show, right? You can't blame them for that. You can dislike the show. That's fine too. My only problem with it was that I felt the bashing on Huck was a bit too much. I think that I said earlier on. I think a lot of what Thorin said and a lot of what Richard said was actually very harsh, and some of it was maybe put over in the slightly contentious way. But I think if you read between the lines, what they actually had to say was genuinely true, and we should definitely look at that, right? And we've dealt with some of that tonight. On the other hand, I didn't like the bashing of Huck, and I felt like if he wanted to be on the show, then why wasn't he on the show to have his voice? That was all. But Richard's quite right in the fact that it's called Unfiltered. It's not a fucking chat show. So, I don't know.
Before you go, Steven, I think that I do agree with Richard and what he said about, and when he said it's not a debate show, it's you come on and then whoever the guest gives their unfiltered opinion. But Steven, what are your thoughts?
Okay, here's the problem, okay? Thorin started off by being the most edgiest edster he could possibly be and shitting all over the entire StarCraft community. Pretty much every single person. He must have gotten like a list of like all the StarCraft community's Twitter accounts. It's just like, I'm going to fire off shots at every single person. TLO is an asshole and Nathanius is part of the Old Boys Club, even though Nathanius, I'm pretty sure, came in out later than almost anyone. I don't know how you could even call Nathanius an Old Boys Club. Like on every single person, like he just decided to start going off. So after doing that, and then after making inflammatory remarks, and then after having a position that is highly controversial, right? Because this region locking stuff is a very controversial thing, right? I don't think anybody disagrees with that, whether or not Koreans should be excluded or not. To do all of that, and then to finally have like, okay, now we have our StarCraft community show where Thorin, who's made all of these controversial remarks, is, finally going to come on and we're going to hear these points argued out, becomes a giant hug box circle jerk with Thorin and his best friend, where all they're going to do is get on and agree with each other. It's like, I feel like the reaction to that was so insanely predictable that I would have bet like 10-1 odds that the community was going to be completely disappointed with that show. Of course. Like, imagine if I were to make I wish I could think. Imagine if I were to make statements like, I think that Protoss should be nerfed into the ground because it's easily the most overpowered race in everything. And I think Adepts and Mothership Core and everything should be nerfed horribly. And I start getting on Twitter to all the Protosses and, saying like, wow, Pedrogo, hope you say thanks to David Kim for your fucking tourney win because you're fucking shit. And every single Protoss player. And then finally, Unfiltered is coming up and it's like, all right, we have Destiny and me, and we're just going to talk about what he said. And, and I just keep running over Chanman and talk about how shitty Protoss is. Like, I already know what the community reaction would be to that show. Everybody be mad. Like, oh, no one stood up to Destiny. Like, oh my God, like he just ran over Chanman with everything he said. That's bullshit that no one blah, blah, blah. Right? And what would the response there be? Chanman would go, well, it's unfiltered. We wanted to hear Destiny's unfiltered opinion. Like, no, that's not what people wanted going into it. People wanted a debate on a highly controversial topic because this was a highly controversial topic that an infinite number of people in the community would have stepped up to argue against, but instead it was just a giant circle jerk hug box. So of course, I'm not surprised at all that people would be upset about it.
All right, I think that's going to be it for the first half. We're gonna have a short second half after a quick break. We'll be right back. Paul, I want to say thank you again for coming on. It's always great to have you. I think you were like Richard and Thorin in the way that all I need to do is just put you on the right path, and you can take it from there and make great discussion. So it's really good to have you on.
No problem. Glad to be here.
Cool. Well, guys, we'll go to
Thanks,
a break, and we'll talk to you guys soon.